You're live from the capital, Gaborone. This is BTV News at 9 o'clock. I am Khomotso Mapani. The headlines. Bold and concerted efforts required to solve Africa's energy challenges. The Directorate on Corruption and Economic Crime calls for autonomy.
And then sports, our government to offer national teams and necessary support at international competitions.
Interpreting in sign language is Topo Taposa. Tato Kosimore joins us a little later on with sport. Good evening. The President Advocate Duma Boko has arrived home from the just ended Mission 300 Africa Energy Summit held in Tanzania. The summit, whose aim was to address Africa's energy crisis, pledged to provide affordable electricity to 300 million people across the continent by 2030. The Dar es Salaam Declaration, signed by some African leaders, sets out strategies to reduce electricity costs and promote clean energy solutions by investing in renewable energy and infrastructure. President Boko and his counterparts emphasized the critical need for universal energy access, especially for the rural and underserved populations. Meanwhile, President Advocate Duma Boko has appealed to international development financiers to accommodate upper middle-income economies such as Botswana in their agenda. He says despite this rating, such economies have real challenges in financing infrastructure development and other projects. President Boko said this during a courtesy call paid on him by the President of the African Development Bank, Dr. Kimui Adesina, ahead of Mission 300 Africa Energy Summit that began in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania this morning. Kgaphamadi has more.
President Boko has arrived in Tanzania to join in the conversation of African heads of state with financiers and experts to accelerate the pace of rolling out electricity on the continent. The Mission 300 Africa Energy Summit has attracted about 15 heads of state, leading economies that differ vastly on their GDP standing in economic rankings. During a courtesy call paid on him by President of the African Development Bank, one of the organizers of the summit alongside the World Bank, President Boko appealed for an inclusive approach towards funding.
I know that naturally focus is on the least developed countries, but even those deemed upper middle income still need some assistance. We need concessional funding, in part to address some of the challenges associated with energy deficiency in the region, in the country, so that we reach as many of our people as we possibly can, not just with electricity, but with other services, make sure that the infrastructure reaches even those in the most far-flung areas of the country.
This morning, President Boko will address the summit, sharing Botswana's strategic approach towards connecting the citizens on the national grid. He is expected to also seek new partnerships that will help Botswana transition from coal-generated energy to a net zero economy. The African Development Bank boss wants to have this conversation with President Boko on his home turf very soon.
I want to come and meet you at your home base.
Yes,
not while you're in transit into a meeting, but I wanted just to come by and see you, and to speak with you about what time can be mutually convenient for your Excellency's schedule to have a meeting with you in Gaborone itself, where you can have your ministers and I'll have my senior leadership team.
Later today, the heads of state will append their signatures to the Dar es Salaam Declaration that will lay out a clear pathway on how to get 3 million African citizens on the grid in 5 years. Kgaphamadi, BTV News, Dar es Salaam, Tanzania.
Senegal's former Minister of Economy, Planning and International Relations, Amadou Otto, is also on a campaign trail seeking endorsement to succeed Dr. Akimui Adesina for the position of the African Development Bank president. On Monday, paid a courtesy call on President Boko. The position of the president of the African Development Bank will become vacant in May this year when Dr. Adesina's term comes to an end. Last year, SADC heads of state summit endorsed a Zambian national, Dr. Samuel Mbaimbo, as its candidate for the position. There are 5 other contenders for this position from across the continent. Coming back home, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Mr. Kgaphamadi, says Parliament is important as it makes laws that are vital for the country's developmental agenda. Addressing a kgotla meeting in Sorowe during the Take in Parliament to the People initiative, Mr. Kgaphamadi informed residents about processes and procedures of the National Assembly and the proceedings during a Parliament session. Gabriel Mereki.
Sorowe Main Kgotla was the next stop for the continuation tour of Taking Parliament to the People, an initiative whereby the public is appraised on Parliament and its proceedings. The Speaker of the National Assembly hears the importance of this engagement, stating it sheds light on what Parliament business entails.
The aim of this initiative is to educate the public about the proceedings of Parliament, as sometimes they do not understand the procedures. We want to teach them and also hear their understanding of what they think Parliament business entails. The main aim is to tell them why Parliament was set up, how it operates, and where it gets its powers.
The residents appreciated the efforts made and also advised on that which they would like to see happening at Parliament.
I am happy with the changes that have occurred in Parliament. This initiative has been an eye-opener, and I'm gratified as I also know what it is the person I have voted for is doing in Parliament, something which we did not have the liberty for in the past. Treat every member of Parliament fairly and encourage them to share their views. I appreciate the way the cabinet was chosen with different parties represented. I must appreciate this because we have not been aware of certain procedures of Parliament. We have many educated members of Parliament, and if they can cooperate, they can take Botswana forward.
The Member of Parliament for Sorowe says now the public has a sense of what their representatives are doing and will understand when they do not see them in the area.
I'm glad that you managed to explain to the people here today for the proceedings of Parliament. Some say even those who claim to know it sometimes fail to explain it. At times, a member of Parliament is gauged for his presence in his area, and for those who have ministerial portfolios, it is a challenge.
The public was encouraged to continue engaging their concerns and queries with their Member of Parliament, who can then relate them to Parliament so they are included in the country's development agenda. Gabriel Mereki, PTV News, Sorowe.
The Directorate on Corruption and Economic Crime, DCEC, is soliciting government support to redesign itself to become autonomous. The DCEC Director General, Ms. Botlhale shared that such a move is necessary for the DCEC to become effective in fighting corruption. Tsolofelo Tombale reports.
Botswana, which was long hailed as the least corrupt country in Africa and one of the least corrupt in the world, has seen such a claim suffer a steady decline in the last 5 years, according to the Corruption Perception Index. It is on that note that the new government has announced that fighting corruption is one of their priority areas, and the Ministry of State President has emphasized that strengthening the Directorate on Corruption and Economic Crime is a vital step in achieving that.
Despite the challenges we face, such as resource constraints, which affect investigations, lack of training, lack of the ability to reach the public out there, Transitioning the DCEC to be fully independent remains a priority for us and is vital if we are to be effective and sincere in our mission to eradicate corruption.
The government stands to support this initiative as it will enhance the Directorate's operational autonomy and efficiency. To this end, we are prioritizing the review and amendment of the Corruption and Economic Crime Act to facilitate this transition and align it with the government's vision.
The minister shared that they will tackle the scourge aggressively.
The expectation of the government on the DCEC is to reform its mandate from corruption prevention to elimination. The anti-corruption agenda of the government must therefore align with the evolving needs of our society and this vision.
I have said that we would like to thank you, Ma'am Mama Kgaphamadi, and your dedicated team for your tireless efforts in executing mandate of curbing corruption, and today's session has highlighted the importance of supporting and strengthening the DCEC's operations to ensure its success.
The government has called on all stakeholders to join it in the national effort to eliminate corruption. Solafela Tombale, BTV News, Gaborone.
Different senior government officials met with residents of Kgaphamadi in a quest to craft solutions to different challenges faced by residents of the area. The meeting comes after the settlement leadership expressed concern over issues of transportation, which causes school-going children to walk long distances. The residents alluded to negative outcomes of the situation, such as dropping out of school, poor examination results, and various safety risks facing children. The meeting was held in Kgaphamadi and Gaborone. Reports.
The situation in Kgaphamadi is such that due to issues of transportation in the area, young children are forced by those circumstances to walk over 13 kilometers on daily basis to school, navigating the thicket at the crack of dawn. It was therefore paramount for these leaders, together with the parents, to in-depthly speak to matters in order to craft solutions and give more hope to the children for a more brighter future. Our children go to school very early in the morning, and it is heartbreaking to even think of the dangers they are exposed to as they pass through the bush.
Now I've got an 8-year-old.
I don't believe there is any parent who wants to see their children walking such long distances. I have an 8-year-old and I can relate. Mothers and fathers should have a good relationship with both their girl and boy child. With all their grievances acknowledged, parents were also implored to ensure a significant responsibility for the safety of their children.
Buimana jo e leng gore gantsi ha re biditse motsadi gore re to go bua ka buimana jo.
Our children break out of school due to teenage pregnancy, but in our efforts to discuss such issues, parents don't show up but never have solid reasons.
Motsadi a tsamaela ruri jalo jalo re sa itse gore mabaka a teng ke eng.
Various government officials proceeded to commit to ensuring all the deliberations reaches suitable officers for solutions.
O kare gona le dikgang tse di supalang gore ngwana yo kwano ba ke ba bonang hale o kare ba tla wela go go rona go Gaborone ke sone se ga go ka thatswega go ntse jalo ja ka re solohela re dumela gore dikgang tse tsa bo uniform mmemma lesego a ka ntse bua e ta nna dikgang tse di taboele tsa maloba
ke kae ka leraka re ke ka le ha sekolo kana ke ka le ha clinic kana ke ka le ha dijojo mme nka le solohetsa hela gore
I cannot overpromise, but I can assure you all these grievances are present to the right officers. Considered efforts of all stakeholders remain focal in a quest by these stakeholders to ensure safety and well-being of a child. Keletleletswe Somolokai, PTV News, Gaborone.
Thank you for staying with BTV News at 9 o'clock. The Minister of Water and Human Settlement, Mr. Kgaphamadi, has assured residents of Tonota that the government will address shortage of water in the village by constructing new water reticulation pipes. Addressing a kgotla meeting to update them on the mandate of the ministry, Mr. Kgaphamadi said the contractor will start the work in the new financial year to restore water distribution, as the current pipes inherited from the Department of Water Affairs are dilapidated, therefore cannot handle water pressure pumped by Water Utilities Corporation. Batani Mando has more.
Residents of Tonota are furious that it has been years and years being promised that water shortage will be addressed, but up to now, there are no signs that will ever happen. Bakuruti says enough is enough, as their right to access water is an eyesore, despite their source of water, such a dam, is always full to capacity.
Me ha ka re mo nakong ye le boelang go parlamenteng la go nna ha ba tsela seka le mo toteng mo parlamenteng re mo tshepileng gore re ka dira jang to redesign, retool, reinforce and supply bakhuruti ka next time.
The design for the tender of the water distribution project has been completed and we are just waiting for funding. Our expectation is that in February this year, a contractor will be appointed to start the project. In the meantime, we have decided to increase water bowsers. We have procured 20 water bowsers that will be used countrywide, and we will allocate 2 to alleviate water shortage in Tonota and other areas. Mr. Kgaphamadi admitted that supplying Botswana with water is a shortfall, but was quick to point out that failure to pay water bills is a stumbling block, citing that in Tonota only, Water Utilities Corporation is owed over 275 million pula. Businesses are owing over 27 million pula in water bills, while the council owes over 4 million pula. The community in Tonota water bills amount to 126 million pula, while government bill stands at 117 million pula. Therefore, for us to carry out our mandate, we need this money. This was a joint kgotla meeting with area MP Mr. Gaositwe, who had to explain when the long-awaited new primary hospital will be constructed to reduce workload from the current clinic. When the new government was ushered in, we found out that some projects were not properly awarded, and your primary hospital has been put on hold. Residents are assured that the new government will fulfill its election pledges like increasing old age pension, student allowance, and the introduction of the living wage in the new financial year. Bethany Mantu, BTV News, Tonota.
Former Botswana Permanent Representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Joseph Lukwaila, says Dr. Gaositwe Chiepe was an eminent representative of Botswana who put people first. He depicts Dr. Chiepe as a strong hard worker who gave precise commands and was never intimidated by working in male-dominated environments. Ambassador Lukwaila wishes for Dr. Gaositwe Chiepe to be honored by the country as she committed her life to serving this nation.
Among her various accomplishments, Dr. Gaositwe Chiepe also served as Botswana's first female foreign affairs minister in 1984 when the political environment in Southern Africa was unstable. Mr. Lukwaila said through her leadership, Botswana maintained an open-door policy for refugees and those seeking asylum in Botswana.
I used to join her when on holiday here from the United Nations in meetings between Foreign Affairs, our Foreign Affairs and Foreign Affairs South Africa and Pretoria. She was very stern in these meetings, to show the South Africans that we were not scared of them, despite the fact that once in a while they will come with their helicopters to bomb our capital. But she always made sure they understood that Botswana is a proud, independent state. And even when Big Bota would crack his jokes, Dr. Chiepe would never laugh. She would just look at him with a very stern face.
Mr. Lukwaila says the government and the nation at large should ensure that generations to come learn about Dr. Chiepe's accomplishments.
I just want to see something immortalizing Dr. Chiepe somewhere, just like I used to say, we must have something immortalizing Dr. Masires somewhere. At least there is Kitumile Masire Hospital, and these are people who have served our country so well and so brilliantly.
Dr. Chiepe will be laid to rest on Saturday at Pomolong Cemetery in Pakalani. BTV News, Gaborone.
The family of veteran politician and former top diplomat Dr. Gaositwe Chiepe says it appreciates the nation's heartfelt condolences. The family representative Ms. Kgaphamadi also confirmed that Dr. Chiepe will be laid to rest at the Pomolong Cemetery in Pakalani on Saturday.
Dr. Gaositwe Chiepe, who passed away on Sunday morning at her residence in Gaborone, has served this country in various leadership positions, and she is described as a woman of many firsts. Dr. Chiepe was not only a leadership icon, but a mother to all in her family who had full of love. As a family, we know her as someone who was very strict, but yet a loving mother to all of us who believed in excellence.
A mantra, only your best is good enough. How thou did listen, I hope it's our dirileng, or belaila, or sapasa sent to school. When I hope did you do your best? How that is very important. If you didn't apply yourself.
As Dr. Chiepe was highly educated, she became an inspiration to the girl child who envied to be like her.
We should be as successful as she was. Successful not in riches, but successful career-wise, a itumella tiro ya gagwe a rata tiro ya gagwe and people also respecting her. Re itse gore tota ga o itse a sente mo tirong, ga o itse a sente ko sekolong, o ithuta sente, botshelo jwa gago should turn out a lot better.
To many, she was a great selfless leader who had the interest of the people at heart.
Ka ebile ne le motho yo ne le mo direla puso o na le ka gore a raage rona re.
Dr. Chiepe was full of love. She guided us as we were growing up. She always gave us hope that even without education, we can still make it.
Mo botshelong o tshwanetse gore a itseye jang, a ikgodise jang, a kgone go kgona hale le hale. Yaanong se ne re se bua le ene ne re kana rona batsadi ba rona ga ba ka ba re tsenya dikwele. Aba mo kgona go tshela hela o ntse o sa tsena sekwele.
Mo nakong ya neng tsa bo 77.
Around the 70s, she was a leader in parliament who was too generous to give us money when we were growing up.
Ne re santse re le ba botana rona. Mme re mo itse go ha o kopana le ene hela ha o kwa thoka 20 ranta ka ne go diswa di ranta. Nako tseo ga re mo itse. Mme go tawa tsena mo dingwageng tse ke motho mo tona.
Dr. Chiepe will be laid to rest on Saturday at Pumulon Cemetery. However, daily prayers will start on Tuesday evening at her residence in Gaborone. Wa Betswe Mpolobusi, BTV News, Gaborone.
Tata Kgaphamadi standing by to give us sport news.
Thank you, Khomotso Mapane. This is Botswana Tonight, a sport segment brought to you by Tato Kgaphamadi. Thank you for staying with us. Our lady in story, the Minister of Sport and Arts, Jacob Kgaphamadi, says the government will offer all the necessary support to senior national football teams as they gear up for the Women's Africa Cup of Nations and the African Cup of Nations finals. So, Khomotso Sefako with the details.
Senegal. The Taranga Lions under the leadership of Coach Ali.
The 2022 AFCON champions Senegal, completing the draw for Group D, where the Zebras have been drawn against Benin and DR Congo. With the draw now done and Botswana knowing its fate, preparation to start now in order to avoid poor performance by the Zebras, as it happened during their maiden AFCON final appearance in 2012, where they failed to advance to the group stages.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Looking at the teams, we have Senegal, Kione dangerous Tata, we have DR Congo, of course, Leone, Kione threat. But from the way I see it, if we prepare well, a chance beyond group stage. To prepare for such events it's quite expensive. Lerona at the ministry, their plan and of course the budget. Of course, there's the ladies, the Mayas,
yes.
For about almost 15 million. I think even your neighbor and I talk or even more. Really, the preparation or the World Cup qualifiers, they already did the part of preparations.
Yeah.
So, if Reka preparation the one because as the government.
Minister Kgaphamadi also called upon all stakeholders to assist the government and the national teams on the journey and in sport development.
No, we will be very much involved. Our this coming weekend. Part of our stakeholders there by inviting the private sector so that we start the conversation football all other sporting codes because we need private sector to fully participate more funding sport. So to assist the BFA and also the BNAC.
The Senior Women's Africa Cup of Nations final, where the males have been drawn against Nigeria, Tunisia and Algeria in Group B, start on the 5th until the 26th of July this year, while the Senior Men's finals is slated for the 21st December 2025 until January 26 next year. Khomzo Safako, BTV Sport, Gaborone.
Still in the final draw for AFCON 2025, host Morocco headline Group A and will take on Mali, Zambia and the Comoros. Record 7-time winners Egypt faces a trio of SADC teams in the Group B in the form of last year's bronze medalist South Africa, Angola and Zimbabwe. In Group C, Nigeria will lock horns with Tunisia and the East African duo of Uganda and Tanzania, who will be AFCON co-hosts in 2027. Winners in 2019, Algeria take on Burkina Faso, Equatorial Guinea and Sudan in an interesting Group E. The defending champions Cote d'Ivoire face old rivals and the 5-time winners Cameroon, Gabon and Mozambique in Group F as they look to claim back-to-back titles. The top 2 teams in each pool will advance to the round of 16 along with the 4 best third-place sides. The president of Confederation of African Football, CAF, Dr. Patrice Motsepe, says football plays a crucial role in uniting people as it touches feelings and emotions. Speaking yesterday ahead of the official draw of the Total Energies CAF Africa Cup of Nations 2025 draw conducted in Rabat, Morocco, Dr. Motsepe pointed out that African football continues to gain recognition day by day.
Highlighting on the last AFCON tournament, which was held in Ivory Coast, Motsepe said the tournament has shown growth over the years as the 2023 edition was watched by 1.4 billion people. Motsepe pointed out that the 2025 AFCON in Morocco will be the best in the history of the competition.
The highest in the history of this competition, 178, in fact, the number is more like 180 countries were watching football, African football, and it's because of every single one of the 54 nations, the 54 member associations. We also want to thank the governments. We want to thank our legends who are here with us. You make us proud. You continue to make us proud. The power of football to bring Africans together. The power of football to unite people in one country. The power of football to show the rest of the world that African football is in motion. African football is growing. African football is being recognized as being amongst the best in the world. And one of the most significant recognitions was in Qatar, when Morocco made history on behalf of Africa for the first time in the history of the FIFA Club World Cup. An African nation, Morocco, went to the semi-finals, a moment of extreme pride.
Motsepe thanked Morocco government for supporting the development of African football.
The biggest competition on the continent will be taking place in December, right here in Morocco, and the excitement is, it is a great honor for an African team, for African players, to carry the trophy and to give it to their people, to their nation, and to tell them that we are the best in Africa. So when Cote d'Ivoire did that in Ivory Coast, it was a moment of extreme pride, and we are very confident that part of the greatest players in the world, it's a part of the greatest players in Africa.
The Total Energies CAF Africa Cup of Nations AFCON 2025 Senior Men's Finals, which will bring together 24 teams under one roof, is slated for 21st December 2025 to 18 January 2026. Khomzo Sefako, BTV Sport.
Well, that's it from Botswana Tonight Sports Desk. Thank you very much for the privilege of your time. Headlines up next.
Bold and concerted efforts required to solve Africa's energy challenges. The Directorate on Corruption and Economic Crime calls for autonomy.
And in sport, government to offer national teams necessary support at international competitions.
Tato Khosimore bringing us to the end of our news bulletin this Tuesday evening. Tapotaposa was in sign language. PTV News, Iganyarona.
Coming up on Eye on SADC, Zambia's president receives report on geological survey of mineral deposits. Algeria and Mauritius strengthen alliance. And Tanzania needs $12.9 billion for production in energy sector. Hello and welcome to